Welcome to the first ever My Overall Development Experience podcast. I'm your host, Angel, and the subject of the matter today is going to be why we cheat. Women stop selling and men stop buying. Now let's get into it. First of all, let me clarify something, all right? I don't want to sound sexist, all right? It could be where the men are the ones that are selling and the women are the ones that are buying, right? So there's two types of people. You got the providers and you got the lovers. Okay, normally the provider, right, is the one that's buying, right? Where the lover normally is the one that is selling. Okay? Now, let's talk a little bit more of the provider. The provider is normally the one that can offer, stabilization, security, right? A good routine, might give you a household, a family, right? But it doesn't really excite you. It doesn't really turn you on. Where the lover, oh, that person turns you on. It gets you excited. As soon as you read their text, you start giggling, you start laughing, you got butterflies in your stomach, right? Okay, the problem with that is that normally, right, in a relationship, like I said, you have the lover and you have the provider, right? What ends up happening is that a lot of times we don't get with the person because of the chemistry we have, things we have in common. Is normally because of what they have to offer, especially nowadays in society, right? So the problem with that is that, like I said, the provider normally is not the one that excites you, right? So you ended up having a family with somebody that gives you what you want, security, a family or whatnot, right? But then 10, 12, 13, 14 years down the line, what ends up happening, right? The lover files for a divorce, right? And then the provider's like, what the hell? What happened, right? Or the lover ends up cheating on the provider, right? And then you end up being like, what happened? I gave the person everything they ever wanted. I give them a household, I give them family, I give them a car, I give them stabilization, I give them security. What else did they want, right? They also want their lover. That's the problem. You understand what I'm saying? Because in the beginning, it might seem okay, right? It might seem even good, right? But as time prolongs, it keeps going and going and going. Eventually, your lover ends up being like, I can't do this anymore. I got what I needed from the provider, let me cut my losses, and man, I'm filing for divorce, right? That's the reason being why they say that women end up filing are the ones that end up filing for a divorce. And why? Because in general, women are the ones that are selling and men are the ones that are buying. You understand what I'm saying? Henceforth, women stop selling and men stop buying. Right? And in general, you want to be both. You want to be the provider and the lover. Right? But that's a totally new different subject, right? Which I will get in detail later on in another video, right? But the fact of the matter is, right, that if we stop selling and we stop buying, right, we're gonna kind of like, get a better percentage chance that we're gonna be with somebody that we're actually into, that we actually got chemistry, that we actually got something in common with, right? And then, like I said, it just doesn't have to be monetary, right? It could be, for example, I feel lonely, right? And it just that happens to be that this person's available, right? And I really don't like this person, but because, I was in a vulnerable situation where I needed someone, and that someone was there, I was willing to sell myself, right? Basically I sold myself for company. I really didn't want that person, right? Or it could be where like, man, I need papers, right? I'm a illegal immigrant and I need papers, right? So I'm gonna get with this person because he or she are gonna be able to provide the papers that I need for them, right? And then when everything's said and done, you come to set and find out that, things weren't what you thought it was, and things break off. You understand what I'm saying? And then you're like, you might have had kids and everything already, had a whole family and everything, right? And all of a sudden, boom, the divorce papers are filed. And why? Because somebody was willing to sell and the other person was willing to purchase, right? So if we just knock that one thing off right there, we're gonna knock off a lot of the bullshit that people get into in relationships. Okay? So you already know. Oh my goodness. No, he didn't. No, just the word. You kill him, Shmarsh. Get him. Till next time.